Welcome to the Future 3 podcast.
Boom, boom, boom.
I'm Sean.
I'm Shayon.
And I'm Cyan.
And we are the Future 3 podcast.
Did you know that according to CDC, approximately 33 million people suffer with food allergies, and a food allergy sends a person to the ER every 10 seconds?
Really?
Isn't that crazy?
Whoa.
Every 10 seconds. And that's why we are so thankful for our guest today, especially this guy, Sean.
Yeah.
Today, we have a board-certified allergist and immunologist with over 21 years of experience treating both kids and adults. He is a South Jersey native, go Birds,
Go Birds!
and he is a top doctor in Philadelphia magazine. And he is on the cutting edge of new treatments that are changing the game for people with the food allergies. Please welcome to the Future 3 podcast, Dr. Shashank Sheth.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so
Welcome,
much,
doctor.
guys. Really appreciate it. This is a great opportunity, and I'm really thankful to be here as your guest today. This is great.
I mean,
Yeah.
like he said, I'm very thankful for you.
Yeah, Mr. Allergy himself.
Yes, indeed.
So, I mean, look, you do a lot of stuff on the side of being an allergist. You ski, you do volleyball, and you're a cyclist too, I hear. So, I mean, has there ever been an activity that maybe you were about to do and then your doctor instincts kicked in and were like, maybe this isn't such a good idea anymore?
I will say, probably in retrospect, I grew up skiing. I'm not the best skier in the world by any chance. I tried to snowboard one time, thinking, hey, let me try to be cooler and try something that's a little bit more edgy. I gotten on a snowboard in the Poconos one time on a trip, and within the first hour, I was going down the mountain on a bunny hill, for that matter, and I, picked up too much speed and fell backwards, and then within the snap of a second, I snapped my wrist, and I heard it, I felt it, I was in excruciating pain, and I realized, you know what? Better off sticking to skiing.
no.
And that was, I was trying to be a daredevil and be bold. And ever since then, I actually got a little traumatized. I didn't go back on the slopes for several years, even skiing. And I realized that, moving forward, do what you're comfortable with, the things that you're good at, and sharpen those skills, and maybe not too much of a daredevil with things that are out of your range.
Yeah.
That's funny. I would never try snowboarding.
I mean, so I have a tree nut allergy. I know you have a peanut and tree nut allergy, and you're treating this thing that you grew up with. What is it like sitting across from a patient that is going through what you already went through?
Yeah, you know what? I think it's really a positive experience for me and the patients I treat who have the same condition I kind of grew up accustomizing myself to and learning about and treating. So I really identify with the patients, and I think they appreciate that because they know what I went through is what they're going through, the whole school experience, going through the lunch table problems and the high school cafeterias and the grade school stuff, and even things like parties and social events. They realize that I had similar, issues growing up where I was always had to be careful or had to ask questions about the food. And I think patients really identify and enjoy that I can kind of live through what they're going through, which helps me get better insight in terms of what they're experiencing, the anxiety that comes around with it. And it gives them more comfort knowing that, I'm really looking out for them because I've looked out for myself, my whole life. So.
Yeah, and to those patients which allergies limit them, what would you want them to know?
Well, the good thing about allergy is that there's so much more we could do now that we couldn't do before, which has been one of the most rewarding parts of my career. But it doesn't really have to be as limiting as people envision it to be. I have lots of patients who come in and their whole life is kind of dictated by their food allergies. And after talking to them and guiding them and really telling them about my own experiences and what we can do today with different therapies, and even without therapy, that food allergy is something that you can integrate into your life without making it something that was so restrictive. You have to learn to ask the right questions, but it shouldn't be one of those things that makes you not want to go on a certain vacation or not go out with your friends to a certain restaurant.
Very careful when I'm around other people because there's always going to be nuts in most foods. Like, for example, desserts like chocolate or ice cream cake. I was at the Super Bowl party during the Super Bowl, and I saw this really good looking ice cream cake. I wanted to take so many bites out of it. But then I read the ingredients, but it had tree nuts in it, and I was like, damn.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to be as careful as I can because I don't want to have another allergic reaction and then go to the ER and then stay there for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And most importantly, I don't want to take the EpiPen.
Yes, it can be alarming and very anxiety provoking. To have a reaction, that EpiPen is always a scary thing for many people because it's a needle. It just intimidates you. But again, I tell my patients, how to use it, when to use it, and they really have to get comfortable with the idea that, the EpiPen is going to be much more helpful if you use it quickly and you identify a reaction, and not to be scared of it, because the reaction itself is going to be much worse than using the needle, right? But, hopefully reactions will happen less and less as you learn about your allergies and your risks for exposure, and seek treatments from an allergist who can hopefully help you, sometimes beat these allergies.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, none of this stuff happened overnight, especially for you. It was a long, hard journey to get to the point where you are today. So I just want to take a step back to South Jersey, high school you. What were you like? And did medicine feel like it was going to be your career in the future?
That's a good question. So my wife will say I was very dorky, which is probably correct. I was a bit of a nerd in high school. I played a lot of tennis in high school and was involved with a bunch of, South Jersey youth group kind of events, which kind of helped, shape the next part of my life.
Yeah, most definitely. And do you feel like growing up with all these different experiences with your food allergy is kind of what motivated you to go into this field to try and find a cure and start advancing in this allergy field?
100%, yes. Yeah. So, it's one of these things where, you kind of follow your passion. And so living with food allergies my entire life, always, I found it interesting and fascinating. And, back then, I didn't, even until a few years ago, I didn't really think much about a cure, but I did think that, hey, you know what? If I have this allergy and I'm seeing patients, I can at least identify with them and talk to them about it and give them my perspective, right? Now, as of the last 5 or 10 years, there's been so much progress made that we've learned how to have, people with food allergies, if they have an accidental exposure, they can actually not react to it. Or there's medicines out there that can help prevent the reaction or reduce the reaction. So they can now go, down the boardwalk and have a big slice of pizza, or kids with milk allergy are able to now have a giant, ice cream sundae and not react, right? So you can imagine, how much progress we've made and how rewarding it is as a provider, as well as, for the families to be able to enjoy these things.
Looking more towards the college part, now I just want to ask you, were you that student that already had everything figured out as far as what you wanted to go major in, like being in medical field? Or were you one of those students who was like, I'll just kind of figure this out as it plays out, as I go through different experiences, and kind of I'll land where I'm meant to be?
So as much as I thought about medicine and being an allergist, there were times when I was thinking, hey, I want to be a doctor. And if I want to be a doctor, I think I want to be an allergist. But I wanted to kind of still explore other options. So I didn't have it completely figured out as much as I thought I did when I first entered undergrad. I did first start off doing bioengineering just because I wanted to kind of expose myself to that field. I thought it'd be very cutting edge. I spent about a semester studying some bioengineering classes and realized that it wasn't for me. Very, very heavy and intense on the math side, which while I enjoy math, I didn't like it that much, to be honest with you. And so then I kind of did a little bit of exploring. Not until sophomore year did I really, buckle down and really go into the biochemistry major and take all the pre-med classes and then apply to medical school eventually. So my freshman year, I wasn't fully committed to medicine. I think it took about a year and a half to really go down that path.
That's awesome. And we have plenty of listeners that do want to go into the medical field. So I'm wondering, was there any things that didn't really matter? Like if you didn't do it, you don't think it would have made as big of a effect on your career? Because I feel like quantity is one thing, right? But then there's also the quality aspect to it where you want to be doing things that are meaningful to your journey to becoming a doctor. So was there anything that maybe you feel like wouldn't have made an impact on your journey into the medical field if you didn't do?
Yeah, I mean, looking back, honestly, I feel like everything I did was relevant. I tried to take on some leadership roles, because I think that's a very important life skill to have, and which is something that I'm still even trying to take on today and learn from. But throughout high school, if I look at everything I did between volunteer services and playing tennis, I wouldn't say sports directly is related to medicine specifically. But again, the idea of just learning about interacting with other people you don't know, whether it's through a classroom setting or even on the tennis court, you learn how to deal with people, right? Because that's an important life skill to have, right? And looking back, I don't think I have any regrets about, oh, well, this probably was a waste of time. I think everything was probably helpful in some dimension.
Yeah, living with no regrets is good, because if you live with regrets, then that might affect your future.
Certainly, yeah.
Even if it's little or big.
Yeah. As you know, my mom asked you for so much advice on my allergy stuff because as I mentioned before, I have a tree nut allergy. You have a tree nut allergy. So this is kind of a personal episode for me too. But anyways, you take your drive to college at the University of Pennsylvania, but you didn't just go to college. You graduated with an award, the Magna Cum Laude Award at UPenn, which is basically an award for a high GPA for undergraduate students,
Yes.
right? And UPenn is a very competitive school. But what does your work ethic kind of look like day to day
Oh, when I was an undergraduate at Penn?
in college?
Look,
Yeah.
Being in college is super fun. It was probably the most exciting and fun 4 years of my life. Also, you learn lots of life skills, and it was challenging in many ways because there's so many distractions. So, learning how to time manage has always been obviously very important. That skill set in to me probably towards the end of my freshman year. In the beginning, there was a lot going on. You kind of have to figure out where you settle in. But, I would really study back then, it was like a late night studier. So I would finish my classes, come home, hang out with friends, roommates. But I'd be up late. I'd be up late from like 10, 11, 12 o'clock until 1 or 2 in the morning, whether doing homework assignments or studying for an exam. And then when I realized that I get distractions around in my dormitory or room, I started going to different various, college buildings on campus or close by that were open 24/7. I would literally just go inside a random, classroom and sit there by myself for like 4 or 6 hours at a time, just because I needed to be in like a very non-distracting environment. So I think it was something that I learned slowly and then applied that throughout the rest of undergraduate school at Penn as well as at Temple for medical school.
Yeah, and you were obviously a student who loved to grind on their schoolwork. But if someone in college was grinding as much as you were and weren't seeing any results, what advice would you give to them?
Well, of course, I would tell them not to give up, because eventually some people, have to work harder than others. It's just, the way it is. But eventually, maybe they have to look back and think about, okay, dissect, what is it that's missing? What am I doing wrong? Maybe ask, a friend or a teacher or professor, what is it that you think has led me to not getting where I need to be, right? Because sometimes you think you're doing all the right things, but, your friends and family are there to look out for you, right? So ask for advice. Ask your people who care about you. One of the things I leaned on a lot in high school and at Penn was strong friendships. And those friendships kind of helped throughout the next 20, 30 years of my life, making relationships with people who care about you really can give you insight in terms of what you can do to make yourself better. Don't be shy to ask for advice.
Yeah, you gotta have that protective bubble around you of people, because those are the only people that are gonna really push you truly and also keep you comfortable, right?
Yeah, and going back to that competition that you had with your friends, that kind of shows, like, I know we were talking about how tennis didn't really have a direct impact on your current career today, but it clearly had an impact on your college life because it helped you develop that competitive spirit, which shows how everything connects. It's yet again. But it gave you that competitive spirit to strive to get those A's, to strive to get those better grades than your friends, to be able to win the competition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Like things you do in high school definitely will carry you forward. And I think something that is never too late to kind of think about the skills that you're developing today and how you can apply them for the rest of your life.
Maybe I should try that. Maybe I can get better grades doing that.
Maybe try it out. I'll compete with you.
Yeah. Me and you head
I
to
like
head.
that.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
All right. So now you go from Penn to Temple Medical School. How did you know the medical field was the path for you? Like, there was no doubt that you were going to do this.
Well, I think leading back to what I was saying before, I think the idea of helping others, being exposed to medicine and my whole life was something I always found interesting. And so I really liked the idea of being in a situation where you can impact how someone feels, right? So there's the idea of the science of medicine, but the part of it where I think I wrote this in my personal statement when I applied for medical school is like, you want to have a hand in helping someone feel better, not just treating the system or let's say the heart or the lungs, but treating the person as a whole. And that's something that I think I found to be capturing that idea and really wanted to make the difference in a way that was treating a person versus a disease state.
I never thought about it that way. Have you guys?
No.
No, I haven't. I always thought it was just like, as a doctor, you kind of just treat the patient and you kind of move on, because you meet a lot of different people, and it's probably hard to like build connections with all of them, which is why I kind of admire your work and, being able to find those connections and being able to build relationships with everybody.
Yeah, it is really rewarding. I really must say, like, I think, I love going to work because the patients I have had for a long time, I enjoy seeing them. We talk about not just what's going on with their allergy or asthma, but also a little bit about their life, right?
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think it's more about building the relationships than it is actually like just being their doctor, because also looking at it from a business angle, it's almost like you kind of want them to be your customer for even longer. So if you could build that relationship, then they'll only trust you, and you'll be able to have a long-lasting relationship with
absolutely.
them, right?
UMDNJ, pediatric internship at Long Island Jewish Medical Center. You finished a fellowship at McGill in Montreal as a chief fellow. What did moving so much teach you through these years?
I guess it really just taught me how to interact with different people with different backgrounds. I think the biggest jump certainly was going from the States to Montreal, right? So most people don't go abroad for any part of their studies. At least now it's happening more. I guess a lot of people go for a semester abroad in college. But when I was at Penn, that wasn't a very popular thing to do. But that's a very temporary thing. You're going for 3 or 4 months. For me, leap from UMD Rutgers in New Brunswick to McGill was a huge leap, and I was anxious, I was nervous, but it was something that I felt like I needed to get out of my comfort zone and try something that was a little bit different and unique.
Yeah, like you said, I feel like moving so far can change your perspective on like everything. It could teach you so many different things that you didn't even know were out in this world. But what is a lesson that you would give to a teenager in college or high school?
A lesson. So I think as the world is rapidly changing, and I'm sure you have talked about this on many other podcasts, AI is moving at a record speed that we weren't ever expecting. The one thing that I think plays more and more of a role today than it ever did before is your EQ, how you communicate and interact with other people. And so much of life is on the fast go, but learn how to speak to other people live and in person, on the phone. We're so used to texting now and stuff. So I tell my kids all the time, I want you to, when that person comes in the room, please go up to them, greet them, say their name, right? Don't just say hi, hello, right? Like, hi, see your uncle, or for example, so you want to really make people feel like they're being listened. And I think that part of that's something that doesn't always come out on a application when you're applying for college, right? But it does come out when your teacher's writing a recommendation, right? That, hey, this student really showed that he cared or she cared and was, listened to me, made eye contact and really was showing genuine effort and interest, right?
Yeah, for sure. So training done, fellowship done, chief fellow at McGill. Now you're a top doctor. You're published, you're treating patients on the cutting edge of food allergy science. That's quite a journey and accomplishment. Great job, Dr.
Thank
Sheth.
you. Appreciate it.
So now that you had a personal experience with the food allergy, how does that help you connect more with your patients than somebody who didn't have a food allergy growing up but still does what you do?
You have to build a trust, of course. And, these things don't happen overnight. It takes a few visits, with a patient to really, gain that level of trust and respect. And, and also as a provider, like, not everybody is cut out for the same therapy, right? So we have to kind of understand, okay, well, this patient is someone that's, very anxious and the food allergy has really altered their life and their quality of life. And this other patient is completely comfortable with it. They know their allergies. It doesn't affect them one bit. They're fine. Right. So those two patients need different types of therapy. Right. And so it takes a little bit of context and a couple of visits to really understand that. So that's part of the art of medicine that I think, as you do it longer and longer, you get better at.
And speaking of therapy, you do oral immunotherapy, also known as OIT, to reduce reactions to the allergies if somebody eats it by accident. Can you please break down what that is and why it even matters?
Yeah, sure. So oral immunotherapy is essentially the idea of having somebody really outgrow or be able to tolerate a food that they're allergic to. So Sean, for example, I think you have experience with this as well, but the idea of starting off at a really, really tiny dose of whatever food, let's just use milk as an example. If a patient was allergic to milk and would have anaphylactic reactions, hives, swelling, vomiting, wheezing, if they had, milk product by accident, let's say something with cheese for example, if we have them on oral immunotherapy, we're going to start them off with a really, really tiny dose of milk. I'm talking like milligrams, so like fractions of what you would get in even like a drop or two of milk, to get the body's immune system kind of exposed to it in a really, really gradual way. We build it up over time. And every 2 visits, or every 2 weeks, I should say, we go to a little bit of a higher dose of that milk until we get, basically in about a year's time, perhaps. It's very slow, definitely a marathon, not a sprint. We can get the kid who used to react to a couple bites of food, with cheese inside it, to be able to have a full glass of milk or an ice cream sundae. And, 15 years ago, people laughed at the idea. My wife used to joke with me about it, saying, can I just give you a small amount of peanut and then maybe give you more every single day? And I laughed at her for, how ludicrous it sounded, right? And now, here we are, she's always right. So we are doing that in practice every day with different foods and with great success with most of the patients.
So if you told me that 10, 15 years ago that this would be a thing, I would be like, no way, you're crazy. I don't think that would even be possible for a human being to do that. But knowing that this is a thing, I'm genuinely shocked that this is actually something that people can do to reduce their allergies, the reactions.
You were just born 10 or 15 years ago.
Exactly. You weren't even born 15.
He was thinking ahead, yes. He was thinking about your brother.
I was in the womb thinking about it.
Yeah, so I do it. I'm actually pretty fascinated to see how well I've been growing over with this dosage thing. And I'm still at a little tiny bit. My thing is still powder. It's really small.
It's a little bit. It's a lot more than when you started. I remember when you started, it was I couldn't even see it. It was
what is
it
this?
was 2 pieces of sand, and now it's covering the whole bottom of a container. But it's really cool to see. But it also tastes disgusting. I hate the taste of it. I tried mixing it in so many different things like applesauce, chocolate sauce, vanilla sauce. I just hate the taste.
Yeah, I know. Mom and Dad have him on a rotation of different things. Right now he's on applesauce.
Yeah.
And
Before
I don't know what's next.
Applesauce, yogurt, chocolate pudding.
Yeah.
There's different kinds of things. But yeah, it's tough with the nuts and peanuts. That's my experience as well, that most kids who are going through it don't like it. They don't like the taste of it. So it's a bit of a challenge, but the reward is that if you were to eat at an Indian restaurant or an Asian restaurant and accidentally had a couple bites of whatever entree, that had cashew or whatever else inside it, that you won't react to it, right? And and that's really the beauty of the treatment. So there is a bit of a, I guess, dosing regimen and a path or a cost to it, but the reward is definitely there, that it helps, save those ER visits and those nasty reactions. But, the great thing is that there's choices out there now and treatments that we can really make a positive impact on these families and kids with food allergies.
Yeah, and the story about that reward you were talking about, I one time ate something with nuts when I was doing OIT, but it was kind of weird to me because I didn't feel it right away like I usually do. It took about an hour for me to actually start feeling those anaphylactic reactions, like swelling of a throat or hives and vomiting. So it was kind of weird.
Was the reaction just as bad as always, or was it hopefully a little bit milder than what you've had in the past?
No, it was way better.
Good. That's a win.
There it is. That just goes to show you, as we were talking about before, the advancements of allergy treatment from the days that you were in high school to now when we're in high school. It's insane how far we've come from most people not even knowing about it to now just being able to give people with allergies what they're allergic to at at like still small dosages, but still they're still getting it. Which
It is, yeah,
insane.
it's wildly amazing. And I bet you in 20 years from now, there may not even be a food allergy. People maybe find a cure, but you never even develop it, right? That's the way science is going. I wouldn't be surprised
Yeah.
if, that happens, in the next, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I have one question for you. So, let's just look at your whole journey from South Jersey to going to an Ivy League school. And now you're revolutionizing the allergy industry with cutting edge medicine treatments. So, I mean, what is one lesson that you hope every listener takes away from this talk with you?
The lesson I think is, at least, for me, is like, don't be afraid to take some risks. This whole thing, the idea of, going to McGill was something I never would have thought about, but and I thought, hey, you know what, maybe this is something I really should do just to kind of expose myself to something different, right? And I think it was a very rewarding experience, right? Starting this oral immunotherapy, I was working with 12 other allergists, and when I first started doing this, it was not something that people were ready to jump on board with because it seemed like it was risky and could cause people to have bad reactions and was a big commitment. But I think if you go out of your comfort zone a little bit and really analyze the situation and take a measured risk in something that you think really powerfully about or you really believe in, you will see the rewards. So it's about seeing what's out there and taking that little bit of leap of faith into what you feel strongly about.
Good advice. I agree with that.
All right. So we always like to end our podcast with one final question for our guest. What is your definition of success and how has it changed from your high school days to today?
So, I think in high school, or there's this overwhelming theme about success being measured perhaps by money or your title and things that are probably measured very quantitatively. I think my measure of success, while those things are super important, of course, is also largely about relationships and friendships and family. So, I love what I do. Going to work is not a burden. I actually enjoy going to work, on a regular basis. It's never something that I dread. And I think that in itself is success, that you're doing something that you love and you feel passionate about. That's on the work front, but success in a life front, I think, is more about having lasting relationships with people and people that you really care about. And that stems from back to my high school and college days. I think the relationships and friends I made in college, I'm still very, that was now 30 years ago, are still, my closest friends. Guy trips, hang out, Zoom calls when it was COVID time. But I think having those long-term relationships, people you can count on, people you can talk to, people you can, just joke around with, but also lean on, I think. And that's what I kind of, encourage all the future generations to kind of take part in. It's like, make relationships that you feel strongly about and keep with them. So you try to maintain those relationships long term.
All right, so we have to give a chance for our guests to kind of like turn the tables and ask us a couple of questions. Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, a couple questions. So one is, I really commend you guys for doing this. I think this is an amazing idea that will serve you really well now and in the future, because I think people will be really impressed by the work you put into it and how organized it is and how it's going to be a great resource for your friends and peers and whoever else is watching you guys online. What are your 3 specific roles? Do you have different things that you do, like the 3 of you individually, or is it just every week's kind of just pick of the hat kind of thing?
Yeah, so we all split our work evenly. So I do all the editing.
I do all the outreach and communication side of it.
And I'm in charge of all the social media, which is posting on the stories, posting the little teasers, posting on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
So for our viewers, if any of you guys want to chat it up on Instagram, he'll be the one talking to you guys.
Okay.
Don't worry.
I'll be commenting.
It's a great
back
division
to you.
of responsibility there. I like that. But no, I think it's awesome. I think it's really fantastic you guys are doing this.
All right. Thank you so much for joining on our podcast. We were so glad to have you today.
Thank you very much. This is a great opportunity. I wish you guys all the best. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Threads. We are the Future 3 Podcast, and we out.
Peace.
Bye.